Oh, we're talking about Bride of Chucky today. I have Jacob here. Long time no talk. Jacob, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay, and especially okay. We're going to be talking about Bride of Chucky finally. Um, we were originally, you and I were going to talk about this movie like 3 months ago before my last like unexpected disappearance for months on end. I remember my last
Yes.
my last
Nah,
request of you.
no, that's fine. I got to watch the Bride of Chucky out of the deal, so
I know, but
I
still,
wouldn't have
honest
watched it if
request.
you hadn't
Yeah, then you
suggested
went
it. So
AWOL. Then you went AWOL.
yeah,
I went
no, that's
completely
all right.
AWOL. I remember like we watched Bride of Chucky, and then we'll talk about it on Thursday, and then
I said,
like
does seven sound okay? And then 3 months later, you said, yeah, seven sounds great.
yeah, it might be a little late. But I love talking about these kinds of slasher movies with you. The reason we're doing Bride of Chucky is because we've done movies that weren't of the postmodern '90s. A few of them, like Tenebrae and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff like that. But this is like the last big '90s little
Yeah,
postmodern
we've
slasher we
charted
have.
we've charted a pretty consistent arc when I only when I like deviated us a bit.
Hmm.
Although to be fair, that's mostly because you had your plan, and then I was like, well, I guess I got to pick other stuff. So,
True, true. But
but
yeah,
no,
we've
it
done
always
like
worked.
if you haven't seen one of these videos yet, we have done like Halloween H2O and The Faculty, and I mean, you fucking really name this
Urban
and
Legend.
yeah, and if like you yeah, Urban Legend, and if you're a big Scream fan, don't worry, every '90s slasher analysis is really secretly an analysis of Scream, so it's fine. But that's just the first part of this. And then we decided to finally get together, and I was really if you watch my video, normal is the watchword. Like I say, I don't really know what I want to do. I know I want to make videos with Justin and Jacob again, and luckily I'm doing that with you guys now. That's like the most fun I've had on YouTube is getting to actually make friends, and even ones that are arguably like more knowledgeable than me about the things I love most. So I love getting to talk with you guys. And then Jacob, I'll let you take over this part because
Oh, which part?
Justin
Which
from
part is
Silent
the
who is
Hurricane
also here,
Justin? Or
the Hurricane Justin, who is also here.
Hi.
well, because you and I were set because we have a system. We have a communication.
And
Zach and I know how to communicate with each other, and we said, "Does this day work?" He said, "Yeah." And then Justin said, "I want to join," and we said, "Okay." And then Justin canceled on us 4 times.
well,
And then
I,
and I
I,
kept saying,
I had a date. I mean, I didn't
you
have
had
one
like
planned.
7 dates.
I didn't have a date planned at the time that I told you that I was free, and then I told I told my date that I was free, and then I got canceled on by my date, and then actually I have a date right after we record this.
So
That's a story with that. But I thought this is what I was under the impression. I was under the impression we were going to do this video earlier today. Like I don't know, like maybe like 11 a.m. or 12 p.m.
you thought that because
Right now
I
it's like
said
it's 6 p.m. where I am, 7 where you are. And you're like,
that
oh, we got to do it earlier than 8 p.m. That's
I
7
said
p.m. No,
that in
you
passing.
said afternoon. You said afternoon
No, I
or
said to Zach
earlier
in
or morning.
passing. We Zach and I had said 8, and then I said, well, if we do Saturday, I can do it earlier in passing, which is to say like 7, maybe 6. And Justin messaged me at work at like 2 o'clock,
I said
asking where I
we're doing it
was,
now.
if I was ready.
I still like when we had to move it from what fucking Thursday to Saturday. Thursday's our normal day. We had to move it from Thursday to Saturday for Justin's date or some shit. And
And
then I
then
get a
Justin
text.
said, I have
Yeah, I
it.
got a text from Justin at like 8 o'clock on Thursday saying, "Guess what? He." Fuck. But it's fine.
Well, yeah.
D-
Uh,
uh, like Zach disappeared for 4 months, but I'm definitely
yeah.
more understanding towards that than Justin canceling like 5 times.
Listen. Listen. I promise we'll get to the film in just a moment here, but like listen. Okay, recording a video, going on a date. I don't know which is better, but actually,
I think the ethos Zach and I have established is very clear that
Yeah.
movies forever.
Yeah, movies.
Yeah. Film
We're
lovers
crushing
are
that
sick people.
celluloid.
The virgin date haver versus the Chad movie viewer. We're like I haven't watched Dawson's Creek, but we're like the dude from Dawson's Creek who loves Spielberg.
You mean Dawson?
Yeah. I haven't seen it.
No,
I just
what
know
about
about that
Creek?
scene. I know I have seen his introductory scene where he shows like his bedroom of posters.
Yeah, he's showing it off to Michelle Williams, like the hot girl from New York, and he's like, "Check out my Hook and Schindler's List poster, baby." It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to be that person. Like, I don't want
Maybe
to be that
you
person.
don't.
Yeah, well, shows how far you'll get.
You should have thought about that before you became a film tuber.
That's true. And you're kind of the biggest film tuber here right now. You're the biggest.
I'm
Dawson.
literally not even one. I'm like an accessory.
Yeah, Jacob's kind of the coolest right now. Honestly.
No, that's
I
not
could
true.
quit at any time. I have so much freedom.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. What's your job? You could quit at any time. So you could have just joined at like 2 p.m. or whatever. All right.
But Bride of Chucky.
Bride of Chucky.
And I was just instigating this from both sides.
Yeah.
Jacob's like, Justin's in trouble. And I'm like, hell yeah. And Justin's like, why can't we do it earlier? And I'm like, I don't know. Ask Jacob.
I think I said to Zach, if Justin puts it off one more time, I'm kicking you out.
The Bride of Chucky is this lovely reconstruction, reimagining of the Chucky franchise by Don Mancini, directed by Ronnie Yu. It was directly inspired by, and this is from like Mancini's own admission, directly inspired by Kevin Williamson, so by movies like Scream and Scream 2 and I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think it's an interesting postmodern horror slasher movie because it focuses most of its time to self-referential parody, especially of itself. I think it's like a pretty fun movie. I don't exactly know where to start unless you just want to start at the part where I thought that when I knew that the film had Jacob's heart a little bit, at least slightly, and that's like the opening.
Oh, yeah, I know.
When we see Jennifer Tilly and she's like fucking awesome, just hello Dolly, and then we get Living Dead Girl from Rob Zombie, which
Zombie
is the easiest way to make Jacob like a character is to play Rob Zombie over an introduction.
I mean, to be fair, Jennifer Tilly's magic in this movie.
Yep.
I love Jennifer.
I'm referencing Danielle Harris from Urban Legend, making you love her for her introduction there, which was also to a Rob Zombie song. But of course,
the worst
a million references too to like Michael Myers and Freddy and Jason, all like in this evidence depository or some shit. It feels pretty Burton-esque, but in a Williamson way.
It was like in the first 2 minutes too. Like you just get like, oh hey, all these movies exist in the same universe.
Yeah. It's the worst thing I can say about this movie is that once Jennifer Tilly is a doll, I miss Jennifer Tilly as a person.
Dude, I was just saying the same thing. I was saying the same thing
to Zach earlier.
Oh, okay. We all are saying the same things to each other.
She's just so like, her face alone is just so emotive, so emphatic. Well, I mean, it's really exciting. Yeah, I know, but I know.
It was funny having the dynamic between like the doll and like this like 5'5" woman.
It's a really funny dynamic. It's really funny. That's like, it's beyond just that I miss Jennifer Tilly as like a screen presence, and more that I thought it was actually just like a funny interaction between, abusive boyfriend is a 2-foot tall doll. And
my favorite scene in the whole movie is when Jennifer Tilly is alive. It's the Alexis Arquette scene. I can't get over how hilarious that fucking scene is with Alexis Arquette coming in there going, what they call an orgasm in France, la petite mordée or something.
I love that.
Alexis Arquette killed it in their scene. It was so good.
I think that I do think the movie's kind of like my favorite material is the first half. I realized that going back to parts of it earlier. Not that the second half sucks. I actually really enjoy the second half, but I just felt like the first half is where like when all my favorite scenes I think of with this movie are largely the first half.
There's something about Tilly's presence in this that like just like effortlessly brings to mind like Russ Meyer or even John Waters, or like effortlessly brings to mind that kind of like artful trash, and like I love it. Like, I love that.
It's like exaggerated in a way. Like,
it's very camp.
It's stilted. It's like my mother always told me, or like, dude, the dishes, every line that she had was perfectly delivered in a completely imperfectly trashy way. I loved everything about Jennifer Tilly in this movie.
It's the kind of feel that like, I feel like they wrote the movie around Jennifer Tilly specifically. I don't know the story behind the
Me
production.
neither, but they would have to.
I can't imagine that they thought anyone else was going to be in the part, you know?
No, and if you're able to look up the behind the scenes, I just retweeted like maybe a 1.5-minute clip of Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly and the founders together, and it's actually like I don't know, I like that even more because
I
they're
love
both
Brad
like
Dourif,
acting
too.
it out together. Yeah, it's Brad Dourif for the win, of course. Every time.
The other day I watched his X-Files episode, and he's everything he does. I just love
Beyond
Brad
the Sea
Dourif.
or whatever.
Yeah, Beyond the Sea. It's a fantastic episode. He's so good in
Yeah.
it. He does his Hannibal Lecter psychic thing, but
Brad Dourif never fails, and this isn't the first time we've talked about him, so I guess he's a mainstay.
And I guess the best thing I can say about Brad Dourif is that like he works both as a voice presence and a physical presence. Cause like he's in we talked about Urban Legend.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the first ones we talked about, and he's only in it for maybe 4 minutes and he steals the show. Meanwhile, but even here as just the disembodied voice, he so charismatic, so interesting, so enjoyable. But I don't know, compared to Jennifer Tilly, where I'm just like, man, I wish Jennifer Tilly was human again for the rest of the movie.
Yes, but to be fair, a lot of the stuff with the doll just works. Like,
and to be fair, I might feel differently if Brad Dourif, like you saw more of, you know, his physical presence in this movie. You only get like a photograph, if I remember correctly. But
correct.
Of him dead.
Yeah, of him dead, no less. Yeah, look at this Oscar performance. Yeah. And for the record, I had never seen Child's Play when I watched this.
I've only seen the first Child's Play, which I like. I actually think I like Bride of Chucky considerably more because I just thought it was like a lot more interesting and funny. You know, Zach, you were talking about like postmodernism. I think like it becomes most evident. Like the titular characters. Like literally take a back seat as they're like watching the movie unfold, and they kind of like influence it at times. And actually, I think like I think it maybe loses its theme a little bit in the film's climax. As good as the ending few moments are,
the twist,
yeah. But
one of the most grotesque things I've ever seen in my life.
But the climax loses its steam because I think it kind of drops their place within the narrative just a bit.
I can see that.
But
I just think that movies like this lose their steam by the end. Like movies like this, it's hard to keep like.
It's 80 minutes. It's like an 80-minute movie with one joke that you know you're carrying through to its conclusion. So I get it. I
do love how like hyper obsessed, hyper insecure like most of the film is about its own place within like the horror legacy.
Would you say hyper insecure? I think it's more
because they keep having to tell like Chucky not to use knives. This isn't the 90s and all sorts of shit.
No,
like
I think
it's
more. No,
it's
not. No. It's not hyper insecure. It's hyper self-aware. It's pointing out like how fads die off and how they have to.
In order to be insecure, you have to be self-aware. The movie is like hyper aware of its time and its origin.
Yeah, but it indulges in that. Like that's what makes it interesting. Like it's I think it's like very secure with what it's doing.
Insecurity can make it interesting too.
Listen, you wouldn't have a doll sex scene if it wasn't secure with itself. So
I'm saying it's insecure with its time period. Keeps reminding us that we're not in the 80s. It's self-parody. It wouldn't be funny unless it was kind of true.
But at that point, you know, they're about to exit the 90s too, because this was like 98, 99, right? 98, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I kind of agree with Zach. I think part of it though is that like at this point in I'll call it like the grand narrative of horror movies, the very joke that this movie is founded on was already kind of running its course.
Yeah,
like people had seen some variation of this movie like 4 times before this movie, which is not to say this movie doesn't do it rather well, but it's still incredibly funny. But it's, you know, we're kind of reaching what I think of as like the Final Destination territory, where the joke goes so far that the movie actually just comes full circle and becomes like sociopathic again. Because like I've never seen a movie, or so few movies care so little about like human life as this one.
Yeah.
But
we're in Final Destination territory with the deaths. Like no.
I think
the deaths are awesome. That scene where like the honeymooners are like looking up onto like the mirror ceiling, and they see the little Chucky's wife Tiffany with the champagne bottle, throws it upward, the glass comes shattering down, destroying the entire waterbed in blood and water. It's awesome. But like those kills are fascinating. And the last slasher I saw before that was Sleepaway Camp, which has terrible death. It's just the most boring thing ever.
I like the deaths in that movie.
Okay, but look at this. Okay, well that's a you thing. But watch but Bride of Chucky, like the deaths are awesome.
I think the
deaths
are awesome.
I'd say awesome in the most shallow way possible. It's fun to watch.
It's spectacular.
They're fun to watch, but there's absolutely like even the blonde friend who's like maybe the only likable character that actually dies. Like you don't really care about him. Like when he gets hit by the truck. Like
the gay kid. Yeah.
Well, that works too. Let's get back in the van.
There's like at every one of these like 90s slasher movies, there's always one death in the movie where I that makes me think like, well, now I'm just sad, and that was him. I think it's Damien.
Well, look at his trajectory. He's like super supportive and nice and like forward thinking, and then he just calls him on the phone and just shows up because he believes. Like it's just such a.
He's also, I think, the only one that gets any backstory between them, because you hear about like this tragic like relationship he had. I think his parents broke it off or something, and I'm like, oh, I feel bad for this kid, and then he just gets.
Well, that's why he died. That's why he dies. That's why he dies.
It's funny. Like movie hates humanity so much.
Mm-hmm.
I also like
it's very funny.
I also like how Chucky and Tiffany are just laughing amongst each other as they see the relationship in front of them like kind of crumble apart
collapse.
Because they're fearing that, like, did you just kill those people? Did you just kill those people? I don't think you did, but I also did. It's like they're so paranoid, and Chucky and Tiffany, they're just like, like,
yeah.
It's awesome.
I was gonna say, like, as far as the cruelty of the film, I do like that it's I think self-aware of its own cruelty, and that like it gives you these human characters, which of course in any other context would be the characters you're supposed to relate to, but they're just the butt of this joke. They're just being toyed around with by these murderers. It's pretty toyed. That was on purpose. No, it is funny. It is funny that like these human characters, first of all, not to do the like horror movies making bad decision things, but I mean like in a different way, because I think when people say like horror movie characters make bad decisions, they mean like don't go down the hallway. But I mean in this case, I mean like two teenagers should not be going off to get married and running away from home.
Dude, with $500.
Yeah, with the promise of only $500 more, he's gonna get $1,000, and he's like, "We'll start our life together." I'm like, "Oh my god!"
And they're already spending. They're already spending it. They're already spending it on the honeymoon suite. They're spending it on groceries. They're spending it all like, and they're just gonna get $500 more. They can't live off of $1,000.
I completely missed that when I watched it the first time, and when I was going back earlier and going through it, I was like, "Oh my god, that's so! How did I fucking miss that? That's so funny."
It lives in its own like trailer park politics world. So I don't really know. Like maybe $500 is a lot for that kid, but Katherine Heigl should know.
To be fair, even like their own lives don't really mean shit. Like she doesn't have like they try to make her not have any ties to her life anyway because she lives with her uncle, but her uncle's a piece of shit, so she doesn't care. So it's so weird. So like they minimize the consequences. Yeah, you don't care when he dies. You don't really care when you run away from home. It's because these characters are all like incidental to the Tiffany Chucky relationship. These are all people that just bystanders in the Chucky narrative.
Yes, but also the Chucky Tiffany relationship also takes a back seat while it watches it unfold. And like there's like a period within the film, like the whole second act, like the Chucky and Tiffany, they're just kind of just like working together, and they don't really have much conflict. and then it kind of like just
I
develops as
sort
it goes
of.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean comparatively.
No, sort of.
Comparative to like the first act, yeah. Like
Yeah, but I think that's at least a little undermined because like they try to, I guess you could say, substitute that conflict for the human conflict, but even then there's no kind of weight there because we know what's really happening, you know what I mean? Like the whole
Yeah.
conflict there is they're like, are you the killer? Am I the killer? Or are you? And
yeah,
but
and
we
that's what
know
makes
who
it
the
funny.
killer is. It's just they yeah. So I
And they're
think
laughing
even
with
in that
us.
act of the movie though, it centers, I think, still Chucky and Tiffany, even though they don't have conflict per
Yes.
se.
Yes.
So
But where you kind of get
their
the sense of
perspective
like
is still paramount. Yeah.
right, you get, but like you see their relationship unfold through Chucky and Tiffany's eyes in a way. So there's a level of dissociation. I was reminded of
Yeah,
Celine
yeah.
and Julie go boating at times in that.
I can see that. I think you
Sort
might be
of,
stretching there, but the
probably.
French New Wave influence of Bride of Chucky. Bride of Chucky is actually
Hey,
a
I'm just saying what
remake
it
of
reminded
film
me of.
socialism.
Yeah,
But
there's a scene where Celine and Julie are kind of like watching something unfold that they like that's a story within a story.
But
Regardless, Bride of Chucky.
it's interesting because of like how like Don Mancini and the creatives behind the movie like have said directly that this film is absolutely the reimagining of Chucky for the 90s was directly inspired by Kevin Williamson's work, which is populated by a lot of teen melodrama. So we get Chucky and Tiffany literally watching some of the worst, most overwrought like teen melodrama I've like ever seen personally.
actually, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their way of injecting the teen melodrama. Only it's like it's only a way that Chucky could do it.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think even like disconnected from the Chucky mythos, for me, I don't even think this movie really interacts with Chucky as like a story or a series, and just more the idea of a franchise in general is interacted with.
Yeah,
like the idea
I
of Chucky as a franchise rather than Chucky as like a film series. Like I feel like the target audience is people who might not have even seen Chucky before, but are just familiar with the iconography of Chucky via
or you want it to be
memorabilia. Yeah, this is my justification for not doing research. But
what's that?
This is a huge like stylistic departure from the first three Chucky films. The first three Chucky films, while like humorous, almost by default, by something inherent within them, they were still like horror movies. I think Child's Play 2 is like fantastic. Bride of Chucky probably my favorite one.
Child's Play doesn't. Child's Play like there's a level where it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it still sort of does. I feel like this one is just comedy, like in a way.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it was horror, of course.
But if you saw like the sequel Seed of Chucky, like you'll see this postmodern idea taken way too far, and then like the joke is beyond stale at that point. John Waters is actually in the next one, like so.
Really?
Pretty clear.
Really? Yeah. I didn't know that.
He's like a paparazzo or something.
I'm also gonna make I'm gonna christen this video by making the first Scream analogy. And just say like on what I was saying, like I feel like Scream was a movie for people that also didn't necessarily like see the slasher movies it's making fun of, but are just by like cultural osmosis or whatever you want to call it, like familiar with the concepts or familiar with the ideas. But
and I would absolutely agree, which is so funny because Scream is obsessed with not only self-reference but like reference of every fucking variety. Like some are pretty deep cuts, and like Bride of Chucky, while they don't even make like a direct reference to like Alex, like Andy, I'm sorry, then like the main kid from the first movies, it doesn't even appear in this one. Like it's still, like I said, like hyper focused on itself as a franchise, though, which I think is a good distinction that you just put in there because it's more so. I don't know. I see this as a really rebellious like movie. Like this franchise is just like refusing to die. Honestly,
well, you called it to me a like a reconstruction in a way. Like
in a way, it has to be.
I mean, I can see that because in the case of Scream, you at least have something approximating a human link in Neve Campbell, because she's someone who at least observes what's happening and realizes she lives in a fucking cartoon, whereas in this, the ciphers you live through are the fucking cartoon. So exactly. You don't really this movie is decidedly outside of reality, even in our
Exactly.
perspective. So I think that's where the reconstruction element comes in, because it's trying to inhabit its own little world again instead of trying to comment on its own little world again. If that
Well,
makes sense.
I think it's still commenting on its world, but it's kind of trying to establish like,
From
hey,
within,
we
yeah.
realize there's things that don't really make sense, that are kind of silly, but like let's address that, but then also kind of like indulge in that and kind of create birth at the end, birth like something new. But
Yeah, a little bit.
also like in line with its own roots. At least that's kind of my takeaway.
Oh no, for sure. I mean, this is a parody, and like parody is a flourish, is a tool of postmodern like art, especially in horror movies. But it's just like one tool. I mean, that's why like parody is just one part of Scream. Scream is like a much larger thing to work with. This is a comedy. At the end of the day, it's a comedy. It's not really horrific or horrifying. There's not really any like moral quandary. It's not, to me, like it does comment on art, but it doesn't comment on like the perception of art, or on like the behavior of the people who like imbibe or like consume the art. It's just for parody's sake, just for self-referential, just to be self-referential, like almost to not exactly fit in, but like I don't know, maybe to lampoon it too.
So you're saying there's not really much of
postmodern.
you're saying there's not really much of a sociological or psychological analysis of like audience members and their engagement with it.
mean,
it just kind of.
I don't really think so with this one.
Yeah, I could
only,
sort of see that, where Scream kind of does.
Maybe only incidentally in
Yeah.
you know, in the kind of like Warhol sense of like there is a point, but the point was not intended, you know. But
yeah, that's exactly what I would agree with. Like, I mean, Kevin Williamson stuff, like you can talk like pretty fucking deeply about it in a sophisticated way. It would almost there's no fucking way Bride of Chucky was trying to make any sort of commentary on anything apart from itself, and not even in like a really substantive way either, probably.
I think it's because, like you said, it's a comedy first and foremost, and I think in that way, it builds itself on comedy tropes,
right? But
like its sense of like relationships and drama.
Well,
like I watched what?
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I watched like an American comedy for the first time in maybe like half a decade, and recently I watched I got talked into watching Crazy Stupid Love, or I think it's what it's called, and I just like the understanding of how like resolution resolves itself, how like conflicts and relationships resolve themselves, that kind of like overly sincere, overly optimistic view of how these things work. I think the exact same tropes appear in Bride of Chucky, the way. Chucky's an evil man. Like Chucky's horrible to Jennifer Tilly, and
Jennifer Tilly's terrible too. She's terrible too.
Yeah, but they also try to cover that up. They try, like, Jennifer Tilly is simultaneously supposed to be a literal serial killer, but also just like she's got a heart of gold. She just wants to find love. She just wants to be appreciated, and
she's a murderer. She's a murderous psychopath.
No, I think that's where the parody element comes in.
Well, okay,
before I lose this point really quick, before I lose it, and then you guys can definitely pop off. Because every video that Jacob and I do is secretly a Scream analysis. Jacob put this really well once. I forgot what video we were talking about. Put it really, really well when he said, the thing that's like one of the more fascinating things about Scream is that like it's not necessarily a deconstruction of all the tropes. Like it identifies every trope, but then it Sydney can weaponize them in the final 5 minutes. Like she plays into them like equally, kind of thing. We're describing like Bride of Chucky as a comedy. It would fail as a postmodern comedy. I don't think any of the tropes are deconstructed. They're just perfectly hit beat for beat, like paint by numbers. Honestly,
yeah, a little bit.
I was actually about to say something along those lines. Basically, when it comes to the tropes, I would argue, given like its influence, I don't think that there's really much of a sincere like deconstruction of tropes. I think if anything, it's just using kind of the idea of Scream's like self-referential and like metatextual dialogue, kind of just as its own trope. And it's just adopting that trope. Does that make sense? Where
you're saying like it invents a trope, or it invents a trope and then inhabits that trope, or
no, it doesn't invent its own trope. It kind of just takes after Scream's trope. Yeah, well, Scream basically kind of invented a trope in itself, which is that metatextual like a commentary, right? You see what I'm saying? And I think Bride of Chucky is just kind of like, it's just self-referential. It's kind of, there's some commentary, but it's not like anything like of like.
So what you're saying is that Scream kind of resisted the tropes, but in that way invented new tropes that now Bride of Chucky is just inhabiting itself, so the cycle just repeats.
More or less, yeah, basically. Because things start becoming influenced by Scream, and in doing so, they may not be like necessarily like sincere engagements with like genre commentary. Does that make sense?
No, I think that's kind of what
that's agreeable.
I think that's what I was getting at here, and I think I've mentioned it a few places elsewhere, at least if I remember correctly, the Final Destination video and the Texas Chainsaw remake one, where I was talking about how like this period in horror, as short-lived as it was, just rapidly reached its logical end point, which was to come full circle, and you're right back where you started, kind of thing. Which it's inevitable in a way. I think a lot of genres I think did that.
Jacob, you know what this reminded me of a lot more than Final Destination?
What?
Cherry Falls.
The centerpiece of it all.
The centerpiece of it all, and the comedy of it all, and like the trashiness of it all, the stilted dialogue of it all.
Cherry Falls is the key. I'm just thinking of Christopher Nolan talking about the Travis Scott song written for Tenet. He said this was the final piece of the puzzle. It's Cherry Falls is the final piece of the puzzle.
They're so similar. That would be a double feature. It would make sense.
Oh, I thought you were saying Cherry Falls and Tenet.
Oh well, I mean, I haven't seen Tenet, but I'm sure that Cherry Falls would be quite interesting. Cherry Falls would actually be like a movie that maybe didn't deliberately deconstruct like comedy beats. It just didn't hit them after they set them up, but still.
Yeah, it's such an awkward movie. I feel like Cherry Falls, I don't know if I put it exactly like this, but it reminds me of like a student film by someone who really likes the 90s, but like didn't quite like catch on to the joke part.
Well, Brittany Murphy alone makes Cherry Falls far more engaging on like an emotional and like visceral level than Bride of Chucky is. Katherine Heigl,
up to a point,
I don't even know the fucking guy. Those main two people, and like I do like Katherine Heigl in like Roswell and other things. I don't hate her. They're so bland, so forgettable, so terrible. They're not even like
they're like walking archetypes, but I kind of like that about it because
but all of these kids from the 90s were walking archetypes, and they blew up those archetypes. They were like, I mean, these are the most boring 90s characters I've seen, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, but I think they're supposed to be boring in a way. I think they're supposed to be just those archetypes. I think you're supposed to just like not give, you don't care about these characters dying because you don't care about the characters.
I would agree with you.
All you want to see is Chucky and Tiffany. It's
okay,
true.
then why is like Needle Nose, John Ritter, and like fucking Alexis Arquette and Damien like so much more engaging to even be around for 2 seconds?
Yeah, Damien rules. I love Damien.
Damien.
Well, I want a movie about Damien. I like Damien coming home trying to convince his girlfriend that he murdered a guy. She's like, "You didn't murder anybody." My favorite shot in the movie is that he's still dead on the bed and she's crying next to his corpse but won't move him.
That's actually really good. There are some good shots in this movie, like unironically.
Oh, it's pretty exciting. I knew Justin was gonna was gonna bring the De Palma shots into it. Yeah,
there's like I think there's a split diopter shot.
There's a few,
and then
there's a
but then also I think like the part that stuck out to me the most is that waterbed kill. Honestly, the way that everything was shot is beautiful, and
it's
I think
the shining shot.
Yeah. The cinematography, and everything about, honestly, like I think like despite the fact that I don't think Bride of Chucky is actually really saying anything of worth, even about its own genre or about its own series, that I can really identify at the moment. I just saw it last night at the time of this recording, but I don't I just can't help but just really like the craft behind it. Maybe aside from like some of the character writing, which you mentioned that they're just well, I mean, okay, Zach, you're shaming like the main two characters, right? That romance. I don't think
I do too, by the way.
I don't think we're supposed to be engaging with them. I think you were engaging with the little devils that are like ruining the relationship. That's what you're. I mean, like it's a filter. It's a filtered relationship. And
That doesn't
they're just
mean they're
walking.
supposed to be. If it wasn't Katherine Heigl, I wouldn't be able to remember who that was. Like, it doesn't mean to be as forgettable.
I didn't even realize.
I-
I didn't even realize it was her.
I think what Zach's getting at is that, like, say for example, like Friday the 13th Part 4, I think it is, final chapter. The who's in it? Why can't I remember his name? Marty McFly's
Crispin
dad.
Glover.
Crispin Glover. Yes, I love Crispin Glover. The dude's just there to be the butt of a joke and then set up for the slaughter. And he's the most charismatic character in that movie.
Yeah.
His presence in it is almost purely into. I think that's kind of what Zach's getting at as far as these characters is that
Right.
you know,
Whereas
blandness
like
can be used in an engaging way, I think, or like an entertaining way to some level, considering that a great deal of screen time is given to these characters,
Right.
and it becomes difficult to, I guess, distinguish between like what is meant to be ironic and what is not, up to a point, just because am I
agree.
actually supposed to care about them, or
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree, but I think I would actually just answer you're not supposed to care about them. I think you just want to see people die.
I mean, I don't think you're supposed to care about much of anyone in this movie except for Jennifer Tilly, but
Yeah, but I do care about, like, Damien is amazing
Damien.
for 5 minutes, and the blonde-haired friend is really fucking cool too. Like, he's at least got character, and like,
Oh, I loved him. Like I said, I felt so bad when he died.
yeah. Like, if I'm not supposed to care about anybody, then like Needle Nose and John Ritter even have like screen presences. Like, they're even they're even memorable.
I really enjoy that the first like few major deaths are all like cops that were absolutely not supposed to like in any way. They even pulled the like, bro, I'm just doing my job, and then he gets like, what happens to him? The second cop, he gets
Blown up.
blown up. That's right, he gets blown up.
Right
after that, they've ride. There's
Yeah, they can't be that boring when Katherine Heigl is screaming, "I'm gonna vaporize you." How does she scream it in the most boring, forgettable way possible? I mean, come on.
Okay, you might have a point. You might have a point here. I just didn't mind because I thought everything else was just really funny.
Yeah, like, let's remember, they're based as fuck. They're getting into a fist fight with a cop in front of like a diner. Like,
and why don't I think these guys are great? I should love that, but no, I don't give a shit.
Oh, also the cops were like, I could do whatever I want. And the chief of police.
It really does, like, their lives just feel completely free of consequence, and I can't decide if I like that or not.
The film may have more commentary on cops than it does the horror genre.
A little bit. It the abuse of authority. Although I do think it's funny that, like, as it goes on, the victims become like less despicable slightly, because like you start with these horrible cops, you go to the weird perverts trying to come on to two teenagers, and then by the end it's just two like nameless old people in their RV. It just gets sadder as it, and also the blonde. I like we're just calling him the blonde friend. The blonde friend.
Because I didn't realize it was going to be so sympathetic towards like I mean, maybe not so much towards
Jennifer Tilly.
No, towards Chucky. Like it's.
I don't give a shit about Chucky. Chucky's piece of shit, but
it's extra sympathetic towards Tiffany, Jennifer Tilly's character. But it's still sympathetic towards Chucky until more towards the end. It's kind of more like this relationship. Yes, he's like a jerk and he's terrible. He's just terrible.
He's literally an abusive boyfriend. I don't see Chucky.
Yes, he's an abusive boyfriend, but she's also terrible. Like, but
only to other people, and I don't.
My main point is I didn't realize it was going to be so sympathetic towards the villain.
No,
they're not the villains; they're the heroes.
Look, Tiffany will kill anybody, but she'll only sleep with one person.
She'll kill people, but she only does it for love. She only murdered for
line?
love.
Like, don't you know, honey? Like, I'll sleep with, like, I'll kill anybody, but I'll only love or sleep with one person.
Yeah, she stayed celibate for like 20 years for him.
True. Did anyone else think of the age? Like,
I thought a lot about that. So I think
she
was like in her 30s, I think, and Brad Dourif must have been like in his 30s or 40s when in like Child's Play. So she would have been like early 20s maybe at best. I'm not sure. I didn't do the math on it, but they also never like clarify. They just kind of I think you're just supposed to assume that she's like in her mid 30s. I think is the assumption that so I don't know. So she was there's definitely something going on there. Brad Dourif is just like perpetually a 45-year-old man up until like the 2000s. So I don't know.
Except for that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest business.
Oh God, I forgot he was in that.
He's fantastic in it.
It's because I didn't know who Brad Dourif was until like maybe 5
She
years
was
ago.
actually
Because
she was actually 40 at the time of that it
filming, she was
released.
40. Damn,
Yeah.
I'm surprised. So okay, so she would have been like
So
what,
she could have been 20 at
25.
the time.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I didn't know who Brad Dourif was for the longest time. Like obviously I'd watched him in a plethora of movies, but there was this point where I finally was like, oh, that, like I put the name to the face, and now I just watch movies constantly. Like I fucking forgot Brad Dourif
Yeah.
was in this. I did the same thing with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, Wonderful's in a lot, but you know, well, if she's 40, and let's just say that her character's 40 as well, or 38 minimum,
Something like that.
she's still
I
hitting on
did
that
wonder.
teenager. She's still hitting on that teenager.
I agree
Yeah.
that the film is very, very sympathetic to Chucky. It thinks Chucky's the shit.
But
Yeah.
Like, it wants you to think Chucky's the shit.
Maybe towards the end, but towards the ending, it's kind of like I have to kill you, kind of like.
I don't know. I
Well,
thought
Chucky
like
didn't do the
tragic.
goddamn dishes. Chucky didn't do the dishes, and we already
Tragic
covered that.
romance.
We covered
It's
that
like
that wonderful plot beat
romantic
earlier
tragedy.
when Jennifer Tilly was like, "Just do the dishes after she makes you food."
Yeah, that was just came up.
it's Chekhov's dishes, but
Yep, Chekhov smoking
dish.
dishes.
No, I don't know. I thought Chucky was a dick the whole time. Maybe I say that because I think Jennifer Tilly is like infinitely more charismatic in this
She
movie.
is.
Not to say she's like a more
is.
charismatic actress or actor than
I mean, I'll say it.
Yeah, Brad Dourif. I mean, I generally like I love Brad Dourif. I think he's an incredible actor, but in this instance, I think she's a more commanding screen presence all around. So I don't know. I never felt like I was being driven to like Chucky in any meaningful way. I just felt like he was, you know, a douchebag the whole time. But
Jennifer Tilly was something else in this movie. Like you said, it had to have been written with her, and I can't imagine anyone else doing
I
this.
really
It was so
cannot.
good.
She
It was
just
phenomenal.
it's the Charlie Chaplin effect where it almost doesn't matter what's going on in the frame as long as she's in it, because she's always the most interesting part of the frame.
It's
but-
honestly like the movie, like she elevates certain parts of it. At that opening, with the Living Dead Girl song, like there's a part where she like lies down like backward, like in slow mo to like
Yeah.
part of the song that feels almost like Eastern influence or something. And it's fucking it's
the
good.
solo.
It's fucking so good. The solo of the song.
It's a well-made movie. That's what I'm saying. And that's why it's like I don't
But
really
none of
care
us have
about some of
ever
the
said the
details.
name Ronnie Yu before. I can guarantee it, and we'll never say it again.
Tragically. Well,
Um,
because like my broader point was that it almost doesn't matter if it's well directed because of Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, but it still is well directed though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, and
No, it
those two factors, and it's a good movie.
That said, Freddy versus Jason, I haven't seen it, but that's been like very high on my like list of stuff I want to watch for a while now. Right up.
I like it. I like it.
I don't know. I'm almost more interested in that right now than a lot of the other Friday the 13th sequels, because I've only seen like about like half of them, maybe if that. But no, we're not talking
Freddy
about
versus Jason is pretty cool.
Yeah, we
We'll
need
do
a
that
Freddy
eventually.
versus Tiffany, but
No, well.
What
Tiffany was awesome.
does that character come back in any other film?
she does, doesn't she?
Yeah. State of Chucky, like the very next one.
Okay.
Jennifer Tilly comes back too as Jennifer Tilly.
Oh, there you go.
As Jennifer Tilly?
Like
Yeah.
as a human, yeah. No,
I mean,
it's
as
as the actor.
What really? She wait, what do you mean? She
Yeah,
appears as
it goes full Williamson. Like it goes like full.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That sounds like maybe
But it's already
Batman.
by Seed of Chucky. The joke is like way too stale. There's probably some
Mhm.
fans of it who are watching this video, and I don't mean to say it's a bad movie, but it's pretty fucking terrible. So like, I'm sorry. It's like
We've
really hard
insulted
to get
far
through.
more people than that. So
True.
we insulted Jamie Blanks, or I should say you did. I did not.
In the
Oh,
first
it's been
10
great to see him be more online. It's been great. He's very online right now. It's
Yeah,
been-
well, he wasn't when I said his name sounded like a porn star.
You-
Wait, what
you
happened?
couldn't no,
And it still does.
Zach made a joke at the expense of the director of Urban Legend, thinking the director of Urban Legend would never know, and then shortly thereafter, the director of Urban Legend became very online, very on Twitter and stuff, interacting with fans, which has been great.
Did he say something about it?
No, we're just presuming.
Okay.
We're just presuming, but it could
Okay.
happen. To be fair, if you watch the rest of the video beyond that point, he'd get about like an hour and a half of us raving about how much we love his movie.
Okay.
So I don't know, but Urban Legend fucking rules. I love that movie, but
Urban Legend's great. This is not on a tier with like most of what we've talked about, but it's like very important still, like in that postmodern wave. It was one of the big ones.
Certainly not my least favorite, but
Urban Legend or Bride of Chucky?
Bride of Chucky. Yeah,
both of them are very important, but Urban Legend's amazing.
I mean, Bride of Chucky is probably the one more people remember, but although
it's fun.
Jennifer Tiffany became iconic. Like this is an iconic character. Like people love Tiffany in this movie, specifically Jennifer Tilly. Like as a human being in this movie, I still see not a day goes by where I don't see some horror girl sharing some Jennifer Tilly stills in this movie.
No, I don't. I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
it's just a very particular, very successful piece of making new iconography, I guess, for horror. It almost overrides the movie itself. The rest of the movie almost doesn't matter at that point. It's like
what is it about? Effect. But what is it about her that's so compelling?
I think it's
immersive? I think it's those titties.
No, no, I think it's the.
I'm sorry. Someone has to bring it up in an honest analysis, like that they're the co.
Zach.
No, I thought Justin was gonna do it, but
you just want me to be like, dude. It's like most of what her thing is. She became a poker player. Like, oh my god, whatever, guys.
I think it was a mixture of the writing, the makeup, her acting, and I think and ellipsis. She has like this way about her. She has this way about her that just really sucks you in.
She was wearing a corset for like 25 minutes. Like it's very deliberate.
Yeah.
I do in answer to your question though, I think speaking of John Waters, it's that kind of quality. It's just, she's got she's got camp down pat. She really does. And I think very few people do have camp down pat. And it's really wonderful when an actor or actress does.
Yeah.
Because you can't look away.
Absolutely.
You really can't.
I really do think that like her role in this film, especially towards like the first act before by the way, her death is great.
The Bride of Frankenstein. It's actually funny. I watched Bride of Frankenstein like a week ago. It's
the old way of horror is in the water now, and it's destroying and bringing new life to the new.
It serves a dual purpose, I think, because it also broadly reflects her anxieties. What's happening?
There's like some juxtapositions within that scene where it was you get the.
Because it's a movie about a monster that just wants to be loved, and then the offer of love rejects him.
And I think it's like. What I was thinking is like I feel like her role. I mean, I feel like at this point that the whole series has just entered like self-parody, and this parody of like horror and like teen romance, like but I think like she really does act in the same similar way as like Divine and John Waters
for sure. For sure,
and I think
she would fit in perfectly in like Cecil B. Demented.
It's like this like hyperbolized like white trash kind of
not completely
attitude, and I think that it really it's really immersive to see her on screen.
No, I love seeing her on screen
for an era that's like decidedly not camp. Even though it lends itself so well to camp, I think that's what makes it stand out. Because there's not a lot of camp in these movies, surprisingly. Because you would think, postmodern tendencies, self-referential, like it feels perfect, but you don't actually see a lot because I think a lot of them are played straight as far as the human elements. They tend to just be like normal college students who just like hate each other and like fuck with each other, and then like shit gets real and they have to deal with it, which is
Exactly.
usually the trope of these movies.
They've just been
Like
surrounded by
yeah.
media their whole lives, and that's like what that's in their language that they use to speak with each other, and how they like understand the events that are happening to themselves, and how they like how they express themselves just like cinematically or through references. But not here.
I think it's also like a emblematic of like this drive towards quote unquote more realistic characters, which is funny, and a brand of horror that's so incredibly unrealistic. But I mean, you even see that in Scream, where like Ghostface is a loser who keeps tripping over his own shoelaces. So, but like, I mean, like insofar as like the characters are supposed to be realistic, it's in their very kind of postmodern context, like the fact that they're referencing the situation they exist in is supposed to be realistic. So not that it is realistic, of course, in any meaningful sense, but they're supposed to at least like resemble authentic teenagers or college students. Whereas Jennifer Tilly is just pure, like straight out of the 30s at that point. Like she, you know, she, it's like a universal character. She's a piece of, you know, character actor.
Betty Page, right?
What was that?
But it's like a pinup. Betty Page is a pinup, right?
Oh yeah. She does have that vibe. I love that shit.
Yeah. Well, good stuff.
Yeah, it is good. It's a very fun movie.
I would recommend it. So
the Tom and Jerry-fication of you know, slasher movies. This is that's something I wrote down that I just looked at. I forgot I wrote that. I was like, this is the Tom and Jerry-fication.
Pretty good.
It kind of is. I mean,
no,
pure slapstick at this point. I guess there is a slapstick element to the tripping on shoelaces, but this is like, you know, some of these deaths are like goddamn Rube Goldberg machines.
It has more in common with Scary Movie than Scream, almost.
It does. I think that's what it is, and I think that was all that was left at this point. So
yeah,
either you do that, you become, you know, you do that, or you go full psychopath, which is what most of them ended up doing.
And I do adore this film. I'm just it's just not on a level where I can really engage with it. Like,
well, because I don't think it's really
I know what you mean.
I don't think it's really offering anything like any like real interesting commentary. Like I was saying earlier, I think it's just kind of like using like metatextual commentary as its own trope.
It's like the opening thing where you see the Voorhees mask and I forget what else you see, like the chainsaw or whatever, like all the references to other horror movies. That's at that point, like that's not much better than, you know, a Howard the Duck cameo in your Marvel movie. You know, it's just there for the people that are in on the joke, who at this point is pretty much everybody watching, to say, hey, I get it, but not that there's, you know.
Yeah,
I think this is a pretty innocent movie compared to something like Marvel. I don't think there's any kind of malice here. No. There's, you know, so I feel like I'd be more fond of this movie if I had seen it as a teenager, which unfortunately I did not. But it has that vibe of something I would have liked at that point of time had I known about it, you know.
I do have like sentimental attachment to it as one of the VHSs I grew up with. And I remember like even the marketing, the color scheme of the poster was the exact same fucking thing. Like the makeup of the poster, it looks exactly like the Scream 2 poster. If you could probably Google both of those, the exact same fucking thing. Like it was. But I remember that on the VHS really well. I watched it a lot. And when I was a kid, I didn't know this was a comedy. I thought this was like fucking real shit, man.
That's what I thought Scream was when I saw the Ghostface masks. I was like, oh, that movie's probably fucking terrifying. That's probably horrible, evil movie.
Still real shit. I don't care.
I mean, it is, but it's not what I expect. You know, I thought I expected it to be like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but
yeah. Well,
although
the thing
that's
is,
what
like,
I thought all of them were.
thing that makes like Scream so special, and like I can spend all day like simping and talking about how great Kevin Williamson is. What makes Scream so probably special is Wes Craven, honestly.
Oh yeah,
Wes Craven. Now, I've had, I think, conversations with you both individually about Wes Craven and just what a gem he was of a man. He was a great guy,
completely. But like, there's
really
a reason why that's the Kevin Williamson script that like killed it. That completely.
Yeah, and he of course was like humble enough to say like it was Kevin, not me. But you know,
Well, just like with Last House, he was like, that's Bergman, not me.
Yeah, exactly. It's Bergman on me. I just, although even then, like Bergman took the plot from elsewhere. But
Well, yeah,
as for
yeah,
yeah,
that's a
as
good
for
tangent.
Bride though,
You see, I would even venture to claim that the most interesting parts of this video are when we're making offhand remarks about other movies.
yeah, I mean, it's
Like,
because this movie only exists in relation to other movies aside from Tiffany.
right? For real. No,
Yeah.
Tiffany, that's the special. That's the special quality. That's that unknowable ingredient that makes this movie like for all like intents and purposes, it is a classic movie. Like it is like a movie that has something very important within it, and what it is a new horror icon. And I think Tiffany is just as cool as Chucky, if not like cooler. It's definitely more engaging, definitely more sympathetic, but like who knows?
I think another thing I noted about this movie is that it feels like pop art, more like
Yeah.
conceptually though. Obviously, I mean, I guess you could argue there's some like visual, but it feels like it conceptually, like say like a Marilyn Monroe silk screen. Marilyn Monroe is super charismatic and interesting, but it's she brings something to the context surrounding her in that silkscreen painting, or the millions of them that were made, or however many. I think
Yeah.
Jennifer Tilly does kind of a similar effect here, but in that it's just one of another product, but at least it's like an endearing one on some level, infrequently.
I would agree.